Okay, let's dig into this. Have you ever really stopped to think about where right and wrong actually come from? I mean, not just for us, but for everything, the whole universe. Because what if those rules weren't just, made up along the way? What if they were there from the very start? That's where it gets fascinating.
Absolutely. And what's really key in the sources we're looking at today is this fundamental question. When were divine commandments actually set up?
Yeah.
Because that timing, well, it really shifts how we understand things like sin and justice, too.
Right. So our mission, really, for this deep dive is to explore this idea, were the rules already baked into creation? We'll look at how sin is defined as breaking commandments and connect that to the story of Hellel, the being our sources say became Satan, and kind of the blueprint of creation itself. So the sources, they start pretty strong, pretty direct. Sin, they say, is basically lawlessness.
Yeah, breaking the law.
Exactly. Specifically referring to laws like, the Ten Commandments, which immediately brings up the big question. Okay, if that's sin, when were these laws actually given?
And that timing is just, it's crucial. Because if sin is breaking a rule, well, you need a rule first, right? An action can't be a sin if there's no commandment against it. So it makes you wonder, if Hellel was punished, imprisoned for rebellion, what rule was he actually breaking if none existed yet? That's the puzzle.
That is a really interesting problem. The sources argue pretty strongly that Hellel was locked up in Hades, which they describe as this spiritual place of punishment. And it was for pride, for trying to be equal to the throne. But like you said, how is that a sin if there wasn't a rule saying don't try to be equal to the throne?
Right.
It feels like getting a penalty in a game before anyone's even written the rules down.
Yeah, exactly. And this really pushes us to think about God's character. The sources stress consistency, justice. He wouldn't just, randomly decide something's a sin after it happens and then punish it. That wouldn't be just.
No, it wouldn't.
So for Hellel's actions to deserve that kind of punishment, there must have been some clear, already existing standard. A commandment had to be in place. And the sources hit this hard. If there is no standard, it is impossible to break the standard. Simple logic, really.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really deep, I think. The implication is from the moment God decided how he would govern, which the sources say is through love, those rules were set. So love isn't just a feeling here. It's like the fundamental law.
The structure.
Wow. Okay. So love is the commandment, the framework.
That's the idea presented.
So the suggestion is that God set up these standards before Hellel even fell, maybe even before Hellel was created.
Possible.
To make sure creation ran according to his will, which is love. I mean, it makes sense. You wouldn't create beings with free will without some guidelines for their choices.
It suggests real intentionality behind it all.
Okay. And then there's Adam. Where does he fit in?
Well, according to these sources, God created Adam and gave him commandments for a specific reason. To prove the truthfulness of the commandments.
Okay.
And also, interestingly, to refute Hellel's claims.
So, like a demonstration, to show the rules were valid all along.
Kind of, yeah. It's presented as strong evidence that the commandments existed before Hellel's transgression. Adam's role was to show they applied universally. And it's also noted that Satan's actions are seen as breaking all 10 commandments, which again points to them being foundational, timeless.
Right, not just a later addition.
Exactly.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? This deep dive seems to suggest that these fundamental rules, right and wrong, the commandments, they weren't an afterthought. Not just a reaction to problems, but actually part of the original design, woven into creation before any rebellion even happened. Yeah, in that perspective, it really does reshape how you might think about divine justice or free will and just the basic principles that govern everything. So maybe a question for you, our listener, to think about. If these rules, these universal standards, were always there, what does that imply about our own accountability and maybe the deeper meaning behind every single choice we make?